Okay. Now I do need you to tell me if you can see and hear me. Hello everyone. Welcome. I can see everyone here. And Valda, welcome. I got your email. That was so cute. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Michelle. And thanks for moderating yet again. We're going to be doing some watercolouring today, and I have a lot of tips to talk you through. And we're going to keep it really simple, as in my usual style. Thank you, Jane. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So I'm going to head down to the desktop and go through what we're going to be doing. Okay, so what we need to remember with paper crafting is it doesn't have to be a work of art. You like the look of watercolour. I know you guys do, because I did that little survey last week, and Copics and alcohol markers was right up there, but to be honest, the watercolours came next. People are wanting to know more about watercolours and how to use them in their card making, and I think the thing is we try and overcomplicate it and see what these beautiful artists can do, and you know, like, you have to start simple if you're not confident, otherwise you'll lose your confidence with it, and you'll give up on it. And it's a really beautiful way to add some colour to your cards. So welcome everyone. I thought I'd start with some lights. I didn't put my lights on today. Just let me do that. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Is that better, everyone? Can we see now? Okay, so I want to start with tip number one. You do not need to have fancy supplies to get a great watercolour look. You probably have everything you already need at hand. And what I mean by that is you can actually use, if you've got dye inks, that is an awesome way to start with watercolouring. And a great thing about them is you don't need to mix them. You've already got the colours that you want and you know you love. In particular, I started off with the distress inks, and these are even better than just normal dye inks, I find, to watercolour with, because they've got that, they're made a bit differently, so they really react well with water. So distress inks, if you've got any of those, even the distress oxides, although that's going to give you a bit of a different look. Any of the dye inks, any of the Altenew ones, the Catherine Poole ones really paint beautifully as well. And you can basically just practice and play. And we're going to be doing some watercolouring with inks, so that if you don't have paints, that's going to be a really good way to just sort of see how they work. Another thing that I really like and use are the watercolour pencils. So if you're used to using pencils, these are a really good way of adding a watercolour look without the intimidation of watercolours. Obviously watercolours, like I've got this is a really beautiful set of colours from Altenew, and watercolours like this in these half pan sets really go such a long way, and you can mix up your own colours. It's a bit easier to use if you like to sort of venture out and try that, or if you've bought them and never used them, get them out and use them. At least give them a try. And the other thing are the watercolour brush markers. So these are the liquid watercolours, and there are quite a few different kinds of those as well. We can actually even use the liquid watercolour, the re-inkers is almost like a liquid watercolour, but you can actually use your re-inkers as well. These here are the liquid watercolour refills, and I often just use these for a really quick background. So literally you just drop a little drop of the liquid and you can pick it up with your brush, or you can add water to dilute it. They're really easy to use. So you probably already have one of these kind of brushes. You don't need fancy brushes to watercolour with, and these are the ones that hold the liquid in the barrel. Some people have a lot of luck with that. I tend to use it more like a normal brush by dipping it in the water and painting with it. I feel I have better control over that than letting the water just drip down, but I think each brush is kind of different in that respect. So you just practice with what you've got. You don't have to go out and purchase new fancy products to give it a go at least. And if you don't like it, or you don't like the look of it, or you don't have the confidence, well, at least you haven't over invested. And another way is obviously watercolour markers, so like the Tombos, and these are the ZSCM markers that I did a video on, and I swatched all of them out, and that's actually a really good tip too, is to swatch out your colours. These are a swatch that I did of these. That way you can't really tell by looking at the pencils and the markers what the real colours are, but if you've got them labelled or numbered, then you can kind of look at it and you know what colour you're going to kind of start with at least. So tip number 2 was kind of like a double-barreled tip, wasn't it? Oh, do you remember the cards? I've got them here, the ones I made with those ZSCM markers. So these are, we're not going to do anything this fancy today because we're going to keep it nice and simple. But these are the 2 cards that I coloured with those pens that I just showed you. And there is a video on that in my YouTube channel. So if you did miss that, check that one out. So my next tip is that you need an ink that's going to work with your watercolours, that's not going to bleed. So like the Memento Tuxedo black ink is going to react with water, and like there are a few techniques that you can do where you can actually stamp an image in the coloured ink and use that ink to colour your image, but we're not going to do that today. That's kind of that next step forward. But keeping it simple, you either need to have a pigment ink. So if you're going to use a black ink, pigment ink works really well. You just need to allow a little time for it to dry, or hit it with your heat tool. You can use the Versamark ink to heat emboss, and I've got an example of that today as well. And that's a really good cheats way of watercolouring, because you've got the wells already created by the heat embossed image. And the last one that I've been playing with lately is this contour ink. So this is actually a really light ink that gives you that no line watercolour look, or pencil or Copic. You can actually use it with any of those mediums, so that's a good fun ink to play with. But obviously that is taking it a little bit to the next level, because no line is can be a little bit more challenging, but still a lot of fun and worth trying for sure. Okay, so I've got a couple of stamp sets here. I did link this one, but then realised that this Beauty Within, these are Altenew ones. I thought the Altenew flowers would be perfect today. You can only get this one at the Altenew store, so I actually linked this one as well, which I'm going to be using. I'm just going to choose this image here, and this is out of the Castle Garden stamp set. It's really pretty floral. Sorry about the reflection from my lights that I remembered to turn on late. And I just thought I'd use the Magnolia Ballerina if we get to the point where we're going to add a sentiment. So, can you let me know in the comments? I'd love to know which is your favourite way to watercolour. So, is it the pencils? Is it watercolour pan sets? Do you use tubes of watercolour? I didn't even bother getting those out today, I forgot. But there are so many different ways of adding colour, and all a lot of fun, I can say. So this is the image. I will zoom in a little bit for you to see, hopefully. And I've got like a little watercolour palette here, but this, you don't need to buy anything specific. You can simply just use like a piece of plastic or a plate, a flat plate, or something that's non-porous that you can add your inks to. So literally I'm just going to put my inks, and you can mix up your inks, it doesn't matter, dye inks are dye inks. So I gotta say, I think my favourite way to add watercolour would have to be the pans, because they're a little bit more, I can mix my colours. I've got more colours to choose from, but they are also pre-mixed. So, but I like anything, any kind of watercolour. Personally, I just also have like a paper towel, and it doesn't matter whether I'm using this kind of brush or this is a round brush, size 2. This is an Ulta new one from their round set. But then I can keep a little bit more control about the amount of water that I have on my brush. And sometimes, you know what, it's going to depend on what colour you are wanting. So, and it might be in the inks, it might be in the pans. And it could be the technique that you're doing too, that can always affect it. Oh, one thing I didn't tell you is the cardstock I'm using today is the Bristol Smooth. It does make a difference to use something that's going to tolerate water. This is not watercolour cardstock as such, but it tolerates it really well. So what I like with the watercolour cardstocks or something like the Bristol is it's a smooth finish. So for us stampers, we can get a really good crisp image without having to keep on restamping. Although the Misty has helped us there a bit these days anyway. It used to not be an option, but we can restamp with the Misty. But and it's a nice bright white too, the Bristol. The Ranger or Tim Holtz with Ranger have a really awesome watercolour cardstock as well, and so do Ulta. So there's lots to choose from, it just depends on your preference. So what I'm doing here is I've literally just added water to my ink that I've stamped on the palette, picked it up with my brush. I mean, it doesn't really matter for us because we're making cards and not creating amazing works of art. I've alternated petals just so that the water doesn't, it gives each petal, it's going to have a little bit of definition for each petal and allow it to dry without kind of bleeding into the next petal. So you can do a wet on wet technique where you add water, clear water into the actual petal itself. It's kind of clear, still hadn't washed out my brush properly. Pick up your colour and then drop it in. But with a petal, I'm just going to sort of lift it. I overplay, I've got to say. I just don't actually just leave it to do its own thing. But I'm learning not to. But if I lift my brush off on the inside of the petal, that's going to create a darker well, and that's where your shadow is going to be most in the petal. So I'll do that again. So this time I'm not putting the water down first, but literally I'm just adding the ink on the brush, and then I'm letting it, lifting up see how that just kind of creates a little bit darker well there on that petal. I was going to say leaves on flowers instead of that. Petals. And the great thing about using our inks is we get the exact colours we want. You do need to be aware that they are going to dry a little bit lighter. Okay. My next tip is to practice. I know no one wants to hear that. It's like we just want to get straight to the finish line, don't we? But practice is definitely, because you're going to get have different looks depending on what you're colouring with. So say, here I'm colouring with the inks, it's going to feel a bit different on this cardstock with these inks as opposed to on, say, a different cardstock with pan paints. So the more you practice, the better. And when you're practicing, I'd recommend having an image, using an image that you've coloured before. I just think that really does make such a difference. Watch, this hasn't dried. I'm probably going to make it bleed. Not that it matters. I'm going to mix them up. And that's the beauty of colouring with an embossed image. You don't have that so much of that wait time. Now, how's everyone going? You got a spare few hours while I do my colouring? So just going to hit it with the heat tool a little bit just to speed it up. I've got a low setting on the heat tool. One thing is to really make sure that your colours are dry before you add that next layer, otherwise it can lift that base layer or your there's a word for it. I can't think of it. And often I like to leave like a little highlight on the leaves too. Sometimes I'll do that. These are such pretty colours, and if you're not confident in mixing, then the inks are a really good choice to practice with. That's where I was. We're practicing. So we're practicing with an image that we've coloured before, ideally, and also repeating, like use the same cardstock, use the same medium. So say you wanted to get a little bit better at painting with inks or pans, stamp it out 3 times and have a go. And change up the colours so that you don't have to do the same thing over and over, because that's boring. We all know that. I don't like to do exactly the same thing over and over. That's why I don't make wedding invitations. Now I'm going to mix up colours anyway, so I don't know why I'm being so weird about this. I won't tell anyone that you're at work, I promise. Right. My next tip is to start small, like just stamp one image like I have here, or even just one single flower with leaves. That's a really easy thing, you don't have to concentrate too much on, and can make a nice clean and simple card with just the one flower. A nice sympathy card would be beautiful, or a thank you card, or just because. Who doesn't love a flower? Right. My next tip is to layer colours. So am I still on screen? Good. Now where's that wet? Let me think. One's going to be wet. And sometimes I just like to do like I'm a bit weird. I do like to keep inside the lines where I can. I know a lot of watercolouring sort of doesn't have that look. But It's all down to personal preference. You can do whatever colours you like. You can do whatever mediums, whatever images. Those are Nita Jerem images. How cool are they? They are so pretty with that watercolour look. And they're like little cutesy critters. It doesn't have to be flowers. Yeah, this is not embossed. This is Nocturne, which is VersaFine Clear. It's just a black any black pigment ink or any pigment ink that you've got will do. You could even stamp it in a grey pigment ink, and that would work too. I did let it dry for a little bit before I where's that one? Before I started painting though. Not for long, like I'm talking 5 minutes. Or you could heat it with a heat tool or wing it. This is the brush. This is from the Altenew set of round brushes. They're actually really nice to use. They're similar because I've got the silver. I've got some of the silver brushes as well. They hold a good amount of water. This is the size 2, but the set comes with, I think it's 5 altogether. I have linked it in the description below, so you can certainly just get, excuse me, one brush and see how you go. You can paint with one of these Waterwell brushes. It just, if you've got, whatever you've got, use. Now, I just wanted to change this up a little bit. So this colour is the Coral Cabana from Catherine Pooler. And I'm literally just dropping that little bit of colour into the centre of this flower. With watercolour you can pick up colour. If you go outside the lines, you can actually wash it away with clear water. I'm not sure if you know that. If you're going to add a colour, Tracy, and it's one that's not going to play nice, so some colours blend beautifully together without making mud. Other colours not so good. So if you look at your colour wheel, it will tell you, I'll show it to you. But if you wanted to add pink to a leaf, if you've already painted it green, so if you've got green and you add red, you're going to end up with a brown. So it could work if you want like a brown tinge to your leaf, but if you've got a green leaf and you add blue, it's going to make it a blue-green. These colour wheels are awesome. If you don't understand colour, they're online. You don't have to buy one. You can actually do this online as well to work out. But you know, like this is sort of an orangey, a yellow orange, and I'm adding like a red to it. So it's going to give me that darker colour. Hope that makes sense. And remember, we're making cards, we're not going to complicate it. Well, we do, but only because we want to. So I just want to make this a little bit darker in the centre here. And this is going to leave lines, you know, like glazing, which is kind of what, not ideal, I suppose, in the watercolour world, but I don't know. I don't actually mind the look of the lines that watercolour leaves behind as it dries. Red never plays nice, you know that though, don't you? This is a really pretty colour, this abandoned coral. I don't know, does anyone else use distress inks still? I rarely get mine out now, and if I do, it looks like, just in our world, looks like the distress oxides are seem more popular. I don't know, is anyone still, because I do like the distress inks, I just don't, they're not my go-to anymore, and I don't know why. I just prefer the dye inks for most of the techniques I use, I think. So I went camping. Did you hear? I don't think I've put that in my letter. I meant to say that in my letter. I did put a little thing up on Instagram, a reel of one of the national park we were staying next to. Really pretty, had a ball, gotta say. Got to do a little bit of watercolouring, which is what my go-to is now when I go on holidays. I tend to just take the watercolours and practice with them. I just like the look of them. So there, I'm trying not to overthink it. Yeah, I only got a couple of the distressed oxide inks. And I'm just lifting up that bit that went in there. So add clean water. If any bits go where you don't want it, add clean water and then pick it up with a clean piece of towel. And then let it dry. Okay, so I want some centre flowers. What will I do? Let's do, I'm going to mix it up. Why not? Is that one thing I haven't got out that I've been thinking about lately is my Inktense pencils, Michelle. I know you love yours. That's probably the only watercolour that I use that's on, I'm trying to find the ochre colour, which is really pretty. That's probably the only watercolour medium that I will use on Nina, because you really need such a little amount of watercolour with it. So what I'm doing here with this pencil is I've wet my brush. I want it to be a little bit more intense, so I took some water off my brush. Now I'm going to pick up the paint with the tip. Now this is going to still be a little bit wet. I probably started on the wrong flower. Not to worry. And then I literally am just going to paint the centre of these direct from the pencil. You can draw with the pencil as well. I don't find when I'm doing small areas like this, that doesn't work so well for me. I'd rather pick it straight up off the brush. There's a lot of colour. These woodless pencils, they're all paint, the whole thing, except it has a shiny coating on the outside, so you don't end up with it on your fingers. And they're really easy to sharpen if you do want to use them as a to colour and draw. I'll let that dry for a second and then we'll add some shading. Now I was going to show you something. What was it? While that dries. Oh yeah, so this is what I've been doing when I'm going away camping. I've been taking this, I've been taking these, and this time I actually took this as well. So I did a couple of the images. What I like about this is a really good way to colour. They're not cheap, these books, but they are proper watercolour cardstock, they're 100% cotton. They are beautiful to use and the images are ready to go. And you get 2 of each image. So what you can do is, do the one that's in black first, so you get a feel for it. And then the second image, that's the one I coloured, is in the lighter ink, so you get more of a no-line look. So you can actually play with that. Now this one's not quite finished. This is the one I did with the pan set. It hasn't got enough shading on there yet for my liking. But the, and this I did with the pencils. So you can really get a good look with anything. Oh, it's Prismacolor. Okay. I thought you had the Inktense. Someone else. Must be someone else. Another Michelle in another world. But yeah, I'm finding that's a really good way for me to practice my watercolouring, just taking that with me. And then having like just a few supplies. I found if I took too much, I actually wasn't using it. Now don't freak out. I've got violet here. Is it? It could be Bobby. You might be right. So crushed violet. When playing with red, a good shading colour is purple. And we know that from the wheel. It should be opposite. Let me have a look. I got glue on my wheel. Ignore that. Is it? Oh, how do I know that? It's on here. Red and nope, purple. So you're mixing the violet with the red. That'll give you a shading colour. And on green for leaves, a good shading colour is blue. I just wanted to add a little bit of shadow. Try not to overthink it. You can see where the petals are sitting behind each other or folding. You don't have to do too much either. I can get a bit carried away with this part sometimes and add too much shading. But I like that. So this is a really pretty set, this one too. The other thing I thought about doing was doing the centre of the flowers in with like a black. Once it's dry, you can come in with a black Copic multiliner or something like that. I did get a bit overboard there. I always do. Can't help myself. And I'm literally just picking up a little bit of the purple on the tip of my brush. But you can do any brush. Those ones I showed you, those flowers I just coloured the other day when I was camping, I used this brush. I didn't even take any of these because I couldn't be bothered getting out the carry case. Like I said, less is best and I'm more likely to use them. And I just look at it as like a practice exercise so I don't get too kind of wound up in everything. All right. Now what's next? Don't be afraid to go dark. That's my next tip. And that's what I'm doing here, is adding that. It just gives it a different look. And it does always come down to personal preference. It doesn't really matter. I never used to add the dark. And even with, this is with any of your colouring mediums, just take it that little step further. Hold your breath and take it that, and you'll be surprised at the extra dimension adding some dark can do to your images. And that's also Copics, pencils, inks. See, look, I'm chatting away. keep on adding shading, Therese, can't help yourself. And I'm not even going to come in, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to add that purple. But normally I'd probably go for a blue to add some depth to these leaves. Have I missed any questions? Oh yes, but I was, I did do a video of that, but I was going away for months on that trip, so I needed to be doing videos for, I was doing videos for Altenew, and I might get my face off there so you can see more of the screen. So I did actually take a lot more than I normally do. Like if I'm just going for a short trip, I'm only taking the bare minimum now. Right. Now, so, because I'm not adding a lot of water with that it's not going to take very long to dry. My favourite medium to add colour altogether, Tracy, would have to be, I'd have to say Copics, or alcohol markers. It doesn't have to be Copics, to be honest. I use 3 different kinds of alcohol markers now, and they're all really good ones. I'm enjoying. I haven't tried. I know there are cheaper alcohol markers around, and people have a lot of good results from them, but I haven't actually tried them. The 3 I use are the Copic brand. I've also got the Altenew. I'm just actually, can you see, I'm just picking up the paint here, and I don't have enough water on the brush. And I'm just literally adding the colour. And this is just to add a little bit more dimension and depth to the centre of these flowers. But yeah, and the other one I've been using recently, which I really am enjoying, are the Sketchmarker Brush Pros, which are so similar to the Copics and not as expensive. So that's that flower, and I'll let that one dry a little bit. How are we going for time? We're doing really well. Oh. So my next tip, like I was saying before, is to use pre-mixed colours. Then you don't have to overthink the colours at all. So I thought I'd just quickly, you won't be able to see, I probably can't see this yet, it's the same image, but if you don't have confidence to mix colours, or you're not game, like I was saying, you can simply use buy pans like this, or use your inks that are already in the colours that you know and love. But I was just going to show you how easy it is to use pre-mixed colours. And you can, look at me, I don't use my tray, I put my paint on, and I know it's a waste of paint, but I don't want to dirty my tray. I know that's wrong. But when you've got a heat embossed image like this one, basically the well is going to make it even easier. So if you don't have the confidence to stamp and paint, like with the stamp with the pigment ink and then add your colour, by having a well with the raised edge or the heat embossing, this just makes it so quick. So literally I can just pick up my colour, add it in. To make it more intense, I add less water. To make it lighter, I add more water. So it's and like I said, this Bristol Smooth tolerates water really well. If you do get warping, like so say you're doing a bigger image and you do get some warping, a good trick is to actually, after it's dry, run it through your die cutting machine without a die, just with a, I usually wrap a piece of like copy paper around it, just to make sure it's properly dry. Otherwise it might stick to the paper. And by running it through your die cutting machine, it just flattens it out. So you can literally, you know, just buy like 3 lots of paint. You know, you get your primary colours and you can mix any colour you want, but I don't have to think about that too much. So by having pre-mixed colours like this, in no time at all, you've got flowers, coloured the colour you want, and in alternate colours too. Now here I am sitting here, what colour am I going to pick up next? And the good thing about the pans is you can actually mix them as well, so you're not limited. You can mix the inks as well. I don't have as much luck getting the exact colours and in the quantities that I need. If you're going to be painting big areas, make sure you mix your colour first, all the colour you're going to need. You're better off to have too much than not enough. Now, tip number 8 was work in sections. Not such an important tip here, but you would have noticed that when I was doing the first image. I don't know why I did that, because I'm probably going to paint it that colour anyway, aren't I? But how easy is this? It's literally just dropping the colour in, and you still can get that watercolour look. You will get a feel for your brush and what works well for you. I'm gonna love going back through it and seeing what you said were your favourite. I want to know what your favourite way to add watercolour is. I just like to colour. I find it really relaxing. And the next tip is just allow time for it to dry. If you're wanting that kind of layered look, you really do need to have it dry completely before you add the next layer. If you want the colours to mix, like I'm doing here, while they're wet, then you still add it while it's wet. It's going to give a totally different look each time. Need more water in that one. You can tell, can't you? I gotta, oh, see, I should be leaving that because there's a little brush hair in there. That's that one I saw before. Wait for it to dry, Therese, and then get it out. I do like these, with watercolours, I kind of like that softer look sometimes, but you can really go bold like I showed you before. You can actually... Oh, see you, Lisa. Thanks for joining me. Oh, Valda, I don't think I've ever painted with oils. If you can do that, you're my hero. That's amazing. Oh, I'm going to need more colour, aren't I? Oh my gosh. So my last tip, and this is probably one of my most important tips, is to keep going. There is always a point in watercolouring where you look at it and go, looks terrible. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but there's always that point where you can look at something and go, it's not right. Like, I kind of look at that and think, I'm not going to be able to fix that. But I've learned over the years just to keep going, sometimes even walk away. I'm doing the same with the leaves too. I'm bringing the colour down to the base of the leaf because that would be the darkest place. But how simple is watercolouring with embossing? Anyway. Gives that real soft look, doesn't it? And I don't even really have to wait. Is that going to be too dark? We'll see. Because I'm going into these embossed wells, I don't even really have to wait. And you could leave it at that. But I'll probably come and do another layer once that's dry. I'll just give that a bit of time to dry. And in the meantime, we'll just stamp a sentiment on here. So I'll have to do another day where we can focus on perhaps just doing some no-line colouring, because it's good to see it in real time, because a lot of the videos, let me see if I got that in the right spot. This is a sentiment from the Magnolia Ballerina set. I'm just using some pigment ink here. But that's kind of the trouble, isn't it, when you watching a YouTube video, you don't have the time to spend, is that going to be good size? Oh, I love these A2 layers from Waffle Flowers. Any sort of nesting rectangle die is great, but these are my kind of go-to ones. I always forget to get tape out. I was saying something really important then. It's a shame I can't remember what it was. Okay. Oh yeah, the A2 layered nesting dies. I got focused on them instead. Just run that through my Gemini. And the thing for me with these watercolour cardstocks is they're typically not white, are they? I find that a bit frustrating. So what I usually will do is, if I want the white background here, I'll cut another piece of Bristol if I want it to be exactly matchy-matchy. Or if I want to do, see how it's a different colour white? This is the Nina 110 pound. I make my own card bases. And then I couldn't live with that. It's just too different. The colour's too different. So what I will do today, let me find, I wasn't very prepared for that one, was I? Some grey for Michelle. Because grey always looks nice, doesn't it? I haven't heard anything about the, are you talking about the foil press, I presume? So So no, I haven't heard anything more. Probably the best person to ask would be Nancy from Nancy Stamps, the queen of everything. I don't know if she's here today. Sometimes she joins me on my live. She's awesome. But she's she had been in contact with them, and when they spoke to her, it was we have no plans at this stage, is what I think I remember her saying. I tend not to use, I know that Bristol's a nice thick cardstock, I tend not to use it for a card base because it's not, like for me to buy that, so 20 sheets is $20, so each, they are bigger than a normal A4 though. Oops, see, there's my smile. That's the dye ink that sat on my plastic sheet. Oh, it's all gone now. And the flower, you can see the outline of the flower, won't matter because that'll be on there. But yeah, I haven't heard exactly. I do hope they put out, because I find their system worked really well, and I do hope they do come out with another foiling system, but I'm trying the Go Press and Foil at the moment. I'll let you know how I go with that one. And this one here, oops, I'm taking it all away. And I'll just add some, do I want to pop that up? I'll just have it flat. I think we need to pop it up. Do you agree? Of course you do. And I've got some leftover fun foam here for that. I keep all the scraps. I'm probably going to get that ink on everything, aren't I? Right. So has anyone got any questions about watercolouring before I go? Type them in now so I've got a chance to answer. I've got, like, we really just hit the tip of the iceberg here. Here we go, Therese cut her nails. The first hour was spent painting, the second hour was spent removing the tape. Oh, those dies fit. No, are you talking about the dies for the A2 layers die? No, that's a sorry, the waffle flower A2 layers dies fit the American A4 size, like the Nina. Oh dear me, really struggling today. Yeah, like a pro. So hey, I've got a finished card. Bit of bling I think might be nice. What do you reckon? Yep, so I know the one company that does have nesting layering dies that fits the Australian A4 size is Paper Roses, if you're looking for ones that fit the Australian A4. The other company I reckon who might have it will be Uniquely Creative. Oh, and Scrap Dragon. She's wonderful. I don't know if you purchased from her, but she has her own nesting dies for Australian A4 cardstock made into cards. So I know that Niha is looking into making some of the alignment tools. I must link that too. I forgot to link that. The alignment tool that I use to place that in here. These I've got a whole video showing how to use them, but these ones fit the American size cards as well. But she's looking at getting some made to suit the Australian size A6 cards. So that'll be wonderful. So any questions? Hopefully you've had a bit of fun today and got some tips along the way. I will finish this one and make it into a card and share that. I have bonus video coming up next week. I've finally edited and sorted out my craft room tour. I did the original filming in May when I was unwell, so if I do sound a bit croaky, that's because I was unwell then, but I'm fine now, I promise, and I'm going to share that next week, so looking forward to hearing your comments on that. My next live, this is a 5-week month, so my next live won't be until the 15th of September, so that's a Thursday. My dad is having surgery, so if I need to go to him, I won't be able to do that, but I will send out an email a day or two before, like I did with this one. If you're not on my email list, please make sure to join me. If you head to my blog, on the sidebar you will see a freebie linked there. If you click into that, you'll automatically join my email list. Otherwise, email me direct and I can add you to my email list. And my email is Therese@lostinpaper.com. And that is also at my blog. So if you didn't quickly write that down, you'll be able to find it there. Thank you everyone for joining me. I can't see any more questions. And I hope you had a lot of fun. I'm sorry we didn't get to do any no-line colouring. I did think that was a bit of a far stretch. It does take time for it to dry, and maybe we'll do another video on that one day if anyone's interested. So if you do have any ideas or any thing you want me to try or share with you, don't hesitate to reach out to me or write it in the comment section below. I'm always keen to find out what you want to know, because that's why I'm here. I'm here for you guys. So, and if I don't know, I'll find out. And thanks to all the newbies that are here. I think we've had a few new faces today, so I'm really happy that you joined me, and all my friends. We always have such a nice time, and it's a really good group of people. So if you haven't clicked on the thumbs up button to say that you like this video, I'd appreciate that. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel and clicked on the bell icon to get notifications, I truly appreciate that too. So I'll sign off now. And yeah, I hope my dad's having its knee surgery, so it's nothing. He's had one done, he's gone in for the other. So, and I had to head down last year to help, so nothing too major, but he'll be a lot better off once it's fixed. So thanks for your concerns and lovely comments. So I look forward to seeing you again here real soon. Got my craft room tour coming up next week, and also my next live on the 15th of September. And I'll see you back here then. Bye.